Okay, well, it's 6 p.m. Welcome. And we'll call the meeting to order. Begin with the land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge that we gather on the ancestral homelands of Coast Salish peoples, specifically Nooksack and Lummi tribes, who have lived in the Salish Sea Basin throughout the San Juan Islands and the North Cascades watershed from time immemorial. On behalf of everyone here, we want to express our deepest respect and gratitude for our Indigenous neighbors, the Nooksack and Lummi tribes, for their enduring care and protection of our shared lands and waterways. Now, next up.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first of all, I want to note that Danielle is absent and excused. And then next, approval of agenda. Any changes from the written agenda?
No.
Entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda is written.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Go to the order.
Yeah, so I've got quite a few things for this week, so that's always good. So bear with me as I read directly from some of the things. The AgMech team earned first place at the Meridian Ferndale AgMech and Tech Career Development event last month. Students competed in various categories, including welding, surveying, concrete calculations, electrical wiring, forklift manual reading, and a general knowledge math test. A total of 12 schools and 128 individuals from the region participated in the event. Logan Klein achieved the highest welding score for Mount Baker. Wyatt Freeman was the overall high individual, with Chase Goff placing third. Caden Mosier 21st and Brady Bruin 24th. Additional competitors representing Mount Baker included Joe Avidia, Anthony Plones, Pepe McAvoy Salgado, Brad Strom, Willow Cook, Wyatt Zender, Ben Brooks, Brody Somerville, Mikkel Fairbanks, and Nolan Jaretsky. So kudos to Todd and crew for good showing. Applications for the calendar committee are closing tonight, and we'll start that up pretty shortly here. But while on the topic of the calendar, because of the snow, we're going to announce tomorrow that March 7th and May 2nd are going to be school days. They were originally weather inclement days on the calendar, so we'll switch those days over tomorrow. As you know, tomorrow is not a student day, it's a PD day for our certificated staff that will focus on social and emotional learning. It's a mini conference style where staff are going to be able to choose the sessions that they attend. As a follow-up to the presentation you heard about culture of care from Mr. Linterman and Mrs. Rossman, you guys had asked for some specific data, so I have some numbers for you. And again, numbers to celebrate. The Winter Pantry Program, which is headed by the Foothills Food Bank, served 515 students across 205 families. And the Thanksgiving support that we provided supported 90 families. And the winter break holiday assistance, 330 students received food, toys, clothing from various individuals and community agencies. And then the specific question you guys all had was about the wild bird. Each week is 225 bags each week.
Each week.
Yeah. So I think that's a huge kudos to the support our families receive from folks in our district. As all of you know, the Mount Baker Senior High Mountaineer Band was chosen to perform at Disneyland this spring. They're hosting a jazz, dessert, and silent auction on Saturday, February 22nd at 7 in the high school cafeteria to raise money for the trip. Tickets are $25 and can be purchased in advance from a band student or the night of at the door. And this Tuesday, Russ and Brian and I will be attending a trip down to Olympia with 8 of our high school seniors to meet with our legislators. So of the 6 legislators in the 40th and 42nd, we're going to meet with 5 of them. So the couple of them, Joe Timmons and Sharon Shoemake, have asked to get pictures with the students on the floor of the Senate and the floor of the House. So yeah, Brian and I met with the students yesterday. They were very eager. It was great to hear the range of questions from funding priorities to whether or not they could bring a blanket to nap with on the car ride down.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Russ, we're leaving at 6:30 on Tuesday morning.
Okay, 6:30. From the high school campus.
Yep, and you can bring a blanket too if you'd like. And finally, I just want to acknowledge that it's Love the Bus Week, which has been celebrated all week at all of our schools. Huge shout out to our bus drivers, as well as those folks behind the scenes, mechanics, dispatchers, our supervisor, they do great work. And you think about our bus drivers, they're the first ones to see our students and the last ones to see them at the beginning and end of the day. So just really grateful for that group of folks, and just want to make sure they feel celebrated this week. So that's what I have for good of the order.
Thank you.
Yep.
So next is consent agenda. Entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Second? Yep. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And then information from audience. You signed up? Natalie, you're up.
Hello, my name is Natalie Chavez. Thank you for listening to public comments this evening. It was disheartening for me to see that there is a Mount Baker Health Equity Zone community meet and greet scheduled here this Saturday, brought to you by the Chuckanut Health Foundation, no less. They're like our local Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, then I'll elaborate more at a future meeting. Interesting that they have to entice community members to attend by offering free childcare, free delicious lunch, and a $25 Visa gift card just to attend. That's pretty pathetic in my opinion. It reminds me of the $25 Visa gift cards that were offered to people for getting the so-called safe and effective COVID-19 vaccine, which we know now are very unsafe and ineffective after reviewing documents that were released by court order after FOIA lawsuits. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, then you can find the documents at the Public Health and Medical Professionals for Transparency website, which is phmpt.org. And at the I Can Decide website at icandecide.org, and click on the legal updates link. There are numerous COVID-19 vaccine injured individuals, including many in our community at large. I've met some of them at meetings that I've attended and at the co-op and a local car repair shop, among other places. You can read testimonies of COVID-19 vaccine injured individuals at the website react19.org. That is REACT19.org. There are resources and support for the COVID vaccine injured on that website in case there happen to be any vaccine injured here tonight or who may be listening online. And a couple of documentaries featuring COVID vaccine injured individuals are at the websites unsafeandineffective.com and heikosepp.com. That's HEIKOSEPP.com. There were pint for a poke and joint for a jab events in Bellingham to try to entice community members to get these so-called safe and effective experimental COVID-19 vaccines. So you could get a free pint of beer or some marijuana. And there was a ticket for a raffle for a free truck, which the Chuckanut Health Foundation was part of, if I recall correctly. And it's interesting to me that the foundation is recruiting community members here to apply for trusted messenger positions. It reminds me of the use of the social media influencers who were recruited to promote and propagate the so-called safe and effective experimental COVID-19 vaccines. People who knew nothing about the vaccines, knew nothing about the vaccine ingredients or the mRNA technology that was used in these vaccines, which was pretty disturbing in my opinion. It looks like the Chuckanut Health Foundation has $400,000 for projects to use in this school district. So perhaps you can request that they build a community health clinic instead of having an SVHC in the district, right? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And so next up is information from board. I'll start with you, Ed.
Starting with me today?
Yeah, well, I thought I started with Jason last time, but you're gonna have to stick with it. We can't change it.
All right. A few weeks ago, Nick brought to our attention that Governor Inslee's budget proposal included potential reductions in compensation for teachers. I've done some research on this matter and would like to share my findings. For the past 25 years, Washington State has provided additional compensation to national board certified teachers
counselors, and librarians. This compensation includes an additional stipend for those working in higher poverty areas, often referred to as challenging schools. This extra training and certification have been shown to enhance the effectiveness of these educators. In Whatcom County, 3 out of the 4 schools that qualify for this challenging school compensation are within the Mount Baker School District. Currently, Mount Baker School District has approximately 27 national board certified teachers, which constitutes about 1/3 of our teaching staff. The state's contribution to these educators amounts to roughly $375,000 annually, translating to between $6,000 and $11,000 per person in this program. This compensation appears both as revenue and as an expense in our district's budget. I learned from the Cascadia Daily that the state's expenditure on this program statewide is about $250 million. Unfortunately, Governor Ferguson has expressed support for Governor Inslee's proposed budget cuts to this initiative. This change could feel like having the rug pulled out from under many who have built their careers around these initiatives. An educator's decision to stay with Mount Baker for their full career could be influenced by this compensation, providing that educator with motivation to remain in the classroom rather than moving to administration or another district. Holly Kuhn, along with Senator Shoemake, has published an opinion editorial for the Cascadia Daily to advocate for the preservation of this program. I'd recommend that you read it if you haven't already. The challenge here is that the state can unilaterally reduce this compensation, leaving us with little direct influence over the decision. I'm highlighting this issue today to ensure we're all aware of the potential threat this poses to our district. It's also important to acknowledge the additional stress and anxiety this might cause among our staff who are already stretched thin. Thank you for your attention. Let's keep this matter in our minds as we plan our future budgetary strategic discussions. I've got more. I've got some concerns about the Parents' Bill of Rights. Last year, I was pretty happy when the state voted to pass it, but I had my doubts. Now it's clear to me those doubts were right. The bill was supposed to go to the voters, but the state passed their own version, taking it off of the ballot. This meant the state could change it however they wanted later on, and that's exactly what they're doing. They're taking away the rule where parents could see their kids' health records, and also schools won't even have to tell parents when their child gets medical help at school. The state has also included an emergency clause that prevents voters from challenging the bill through referendum. We should be asking ourselves, why would the state need to declare an emergency to prevent a voter referendum on a Parents' Bill of Rights, if not to subvert the process for updating our laws and the will of the people? We are being told by our state leaders that the original Parent Bill of Rights could not be passed as is because it didn't comply with FERPA, which is the Family Educational Rights and Protection Act, which is a federal law. If that is the main reason, I have a question. What has our state and federal elected officials done to petition the federal government on behalf of the people of the state of Washington to change FERPA such that our original Parent Bill of Rights would comply with federal law? If the answer is nothing, I don't believe we're being told the truth about why the state has gutted the Parent Bill of Rights. Parents should have the right to see any and all records that the school has related to their child, including those related to health and mental health, not just educational records. So what we're left with is just the name Parent Bill of Rights, but not the actual rights. We need to do something about this because parents should have a say and be in the loop with what's happening with their kids. Got no transition here between my topics. So. The next update is related to logging advocacy. Russ and I had a Teams meeting with Jessica Espy, who is the outreach coordinator from Hampton Lumber. This was to discuss next steps with regards to education and awareness about the timber industry operations. At a minimum, these next steps will include planning for a Whatcom Women in Timber event in June, which we talked about before, forestry tour. The other item, which would be new, would be a possible presentation by Hampton Lumber at a board meeting sooner than that. So more to follow. My next update is on the WIAA amendments. At a recent regional meeting of athletic directors, they were asked to vote on two proposed WIAA amendments related to the structure of sports divisions. School board resolutions on these amendments will also be discussed and voted on at our upcoming school board meeting on March 27th, 2025. And I've been asked questions by people in our community about this, so I wanted to go through this another time. The amendment one would be an open division for any and all participants and a girls division as recorded on the birth certificate. The other amendment would have 3 sports divisions. So one has 2 sports divisions, one has 3. The one with 3 has a girls division, a boys division, and an open division. These amendments can be voted on independently, allowing flexibility in decision-making. Our athletic director reached out to Mr. Perigo for his opinion. In alignment with existing school board policy, Mr. Perigo advised voting against both amendments. The vote by individual athletic directors is anonymous. I wanted to acknowledge 2 perspectives on this situation. On the one hand, it's unfortunate that the school board was not able to discuss and deliberate on these amendments sooner. This discussion could have provided valuable guidance to our administration on this challenging issue. On the other hand, I understand and agree with the logic of making a decision based on existing school board policy, especially given the rapid timeline of the vote and the many challenges the board is currently addressing. This approach ensures consistency and clarity in decision making. Looking ahead, if the school board votes in favor of a resolution in supporting one or both WIAA amendments at the March 27th meeting, we will share this resolution with the WIAA. Our input could help influence future discussions and decisions by the WIAA. Last one, and it's short. I've asked Nick to invite Coach Leopard to a school board meeting to give us an update on the athletics program, and I'm hoping to see that in our agenda soon.
Okay,
That's
well,
it.
thank you.
Yeah.
And I just, before we go on, I think I did mention to you, if I had realized
Yes.
that the vote would come this early, my impression was that there was gonna be no voting activity until April. I would have scheduled it ahead, but I wanted to kind of put it when we had a little more time. So I apologize for that. I just didn't know it was coming this early. But thank you. Brenna.
Okay, I've been pretty busy, not doing a lot of school board stuff, so I don't have anything to share.
No problem.
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna get you a typewriter.
I'm looking forward to going to the jazz band dessert. But other than that, yeah, it's been, I've had some other things going on, so.
Jason.
Just one thing really, and with the kids going down to Olympia soon, when we did our high school meet, it was pretty touching with the ASB group to see what those kids have worked on, what their plans are, what they're looking into, and like we talked with them, and a handful of them aren't gonna reap the reward of any of it because they're gonna be out of here, but passionate enough to keep moving forward and really pushing for that, and they're big pushers for that because people listen to them pretty well, right? So that's all I have with that, meeting those kids, and we talked to them for probably 25 minutes or so, and it was pretty, they're passionate about it, which is really good. So that was really great to see that from them, because like I told them, that was probably the last thing I was worrying about when I was there.
Yeah, I was bummed I missed that.
Yeah.
It was really good. They're doing a really good job, and
Yeah.
they asked a lot, even the questions they were asking us, they had a real good plan of attack, that's for sure.
Right.
That's all I have.
Well, thank you. There are a few things here to see. I did enjoy the Little Women. You must have gone to, you haven't
I
gone?
didn't make it, no.
Yeah, that was very, very well done, very impressive. The high school drama, so, I think they're in good hands and it was a lot of lines, a lot of memorization and I thought they did a really good job with everything. I met with the newly elected Commissioner of Public Lands, Dave Updegrove, on behalf of WASDA, but I also got in issues that are more central to Mount Baker.
Yeah, you did.
And it was a interesting meeting. I'm sure I had mentioned my reservations about some of the campaign promises, and he did right away admitted that he may have gotten a little carried away in the campaign,
Wow.
and that it may be hard for him to that he has to look at how to deal with those issues, and it could very well be that, I think the average person doesn't realize that many, or if not most, of the DNR employees' salaries come from the management fee on trust revenue. So if you don't harvest timber, you don't have any money to pay.
He didn't know that when he was running to lead
Well,
it.
the average citizen doesn't know that. I did not ask that question. You form a relationship, you wanna,
Right.
you be careful,
Just the fact.
but cordial. So I did get, I give him a chance to present his vision for the department, and then expressed the concerns that school districts across the state that have state forest revenue, including Mount Baker, the concern they have with a pause, how it impacts our budgets, that our expenses can't pause. Our programs can't pause. And so I think, and he drew a diagram showing all of the trust lands, the part that are already on conservation, the parts he's paused, and he claimed that he intended to over time get at harvesting those clumps within the parts that he paused. So we'll see. But I'm working to try to help support gracefully backing out of some of those campaign promises. I think that's and forging a good relationship. I think it's vital that WASDA has a good relationship with whoever the commissioner is. And I told him that we've had a very close, mutually beneficial relationship, no matter who has that position. And I think it's vital for both entities. So, and we're supporting DNR legislation that the DNR has promoted, from WASDA's standpoint. So it's and other things like that. So I felt it was a very, very useful meeting. I'll see him again this next week on a different meeting, but it was a good start. High school visit. I was so impressed with the ASB kids that I talked with Emily and offered to help run them through. So how do you look up bills and how do you put in impact, what the format is? So I went back a few days ago and spent a half hour with their class, and I was that morning I was going to submit support for 3 bills that WASDA's promoting anyway. So I did one of them there on the screen with them watching so that they could see. I didn't say you have to do pro or anti, but so they could see what the process is and take it from there. So they're really. I told them that they're the most engaged in these issues in the 25 years I've been on the board. which is longer than they've been alive. And I was, so we had a really wonderful time. So how many are coming with
There's
us?
gonna be 8 of us.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're actually gonna take 2 vehicles and,
Good.
yeah, that's why.
Well, I'm really glad because they've got a great future. I mean, if they're that engaged at this age, some of them may end up on the other side of the fence in the legislature.
Who are the 6 reps, or sorry, two state reps and a senator, and then who are the other 3?
Well, because a small portion of our district covers the 40th, so that's Rommel,
Okay.
Lovelet, and then Lakeenoff.
Got you, down near.
Yeah, so one of them lives in Fairhaven, 2 live in Anacortes area, so.
Yeah, and we've always tried to when we advocate, try to include both. I mean, it's beneficial since both of those legislative districts have some of, the 42nd is most of our big school
Correct.
district. But down just next to us, I'm in the 42nd, but across the highway from us is the 40th. So
Yeah.
So that was great. Been advocating for school revenue, both, using what I taught the students to on a number of bills that primarily funding for material supplies, and operating costs, special ed and transportation. And had a meeting today with was the legislative meeting, of which I give a presentation on trust lands there, and then Tyler Minch, who some of you may have met, he works for OSPI and primarily on legislative issues and school construction funding, and he gave a very good inside presentation from the work they're doing on kind of shepherding what they think they can get through the legislature on those, and we'll see how it all shakes out, and we'll have some more conversations on Tuesday. But all 3 of those bills, particularly the MSOCs and the special ed, if depending on how much they get funded, would be very significant for us. So we'll keep the pressure on and be hopeful for it. And I'm Marissa Rathbone from WAS is always asking me to try to find out what WAS's positions on bills should be, and so I've been spending a lot of time on that, trying to help her figure out what our positions on when bills come up. Spent today going over a proposal to only allow union contractors on school construction above $35 million, which means, as far as I can figure out, there wouldn't be any of the construction firms that could build schools in our school district that would be allowed to bid on a school in our district at that level. So we'll try to get some feedback into the legislature on that.
Thought the way around that was to.
What's that?
I thought the way around that was to require prevailing wage.
Yeah, you still require prevailing wage, but so we're paying prevailing wages anyway. But this wouldn't change the prevailing wage law, but it would only allow contractors that already have a union agreement and subcontractors. So even if you're doing the wiring or the plumbing, you would have had to already been a union contractor prior to the bid opening. So OMAC, the employees would all have to come from Seattle. So anyway, that's
Yeah.
those things have been.
There's a lot of guys that can build stuff around here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of the impact on cost there with that.
Yeah.
But I think voters wouldn't like that if they're voting for a bond, and then none of the local people could work on the school.
Mhm. Yeah.
I think you have to have that trust.
Mhm.
So next up is board action items, and Nick, if you want to start with the Mount Baker policy 2413 equivalency credit.
Sure, yeah, so this is a change that this policy had changed back in 2021, but we didn't really feel a need to change it here at our level at our district because there wasn't really a change in practice at all. So obviously the part that is not highlighted in blue, that black writing is the original policy because it used to apply just to CTE only. But high school administration and counselors approached me about the concept of the elective credit for paid work experience, which is, you see the part in blue, section 1 that's included, that's fine. That talks about a lot of mays. We may do this. So we're not in a position to start what's covered in number 1, but the big piece here was what was covered in number 2. Was that elective credit for paid work experience. And so it outlines that, and it's a way for students to get credit. I think it's a pretty cool thing, quite frankly.
Yeah, it's good.
You learn a lot of
Transition
things.
from
Yeah.
school to work.
And you learn a lot of valuable skills in the real world. So, Yeah.
Any questions?
Where, like, what category does that credit show up?
it's an elective credit, so it's not gonna be for a path, it's not gonna be for English or science or just because there's no way to verify the curriculum. So it's just an elective credit, it is an elective credit.
It seemed to me you can individually tailor the student's interest and work experience to graduation credits
And, I also think about our students who work to provide income for their family as well.
yeah.
So this permits them the opportunity to do that work and also get credit for it.
So then they could take less classes during the day or other more like of the science and all of that stuff and not have to do an elective
Yeah.
and then get that elective.
Mhm.
and that way.
Exactly.
So potentially they could graduate sooner.
Yeah,
Is it up to the student to show how this qualifies for?
yeah, it's actually it was kind of I guess it was a cart horse situation because Toby and Matt at high school showed me the form that they're gonna use for it. And it's a great form, let's make sure our policy matches what you're gonna be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they, it's gonna be pretty cool as far as requirements of the employer to show proof of it, and then again, the students gotta keep records, and and then once they complete the required number of hours, which I don't know if it's listed in
I
here.
didn't see that, but.
It says 180 hours,
I mean, the hours should be in the procedure, aren't they?
They very well could be. But also the narrative part where the student has to, reflect on it. But yeah, so it'll.
And it says outside of the regular school calendar, so like they could get credit for working in the summer.
Yeah, like you said, finish earlier if they wanted to.
Man. Great back in my day.
That's what whenever something like this comes, man, where was this?
All I did was work.
Any other questions?
Nope. Okay.
I'm gonna suggest that we approve it for first and final reading, so I entertain a motion to that effect.
Motion to approve Mount Baker policy 2413 first and final reading.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Nick, next one is the interlocal agreement with Whatcom County.
Yeah,
Department.
yeah, so this is just, these I've seen these before, for whatever reason, the county contracts department was slow with a couple updates, which is why it's in front of us again. The one you just approved expanded the scope of possible work. This one expands the money allocated for it. So it makes it so we are the holders of all the money, which again, we have our contract with the architects to do some work on scoping. That contract's already locked in at $30K. So this additional money isn't going to go to the architects, but it's going to be able to support our spaces here. Maybe identified a heater that needs replacing, so that kind of stuff. You can also use it for part of Brian's salary as well, which is going to be helpful.
Any questions?
I've got a couple comments. So at our first meeting, school board meeting, we had two contracts to vote on. One was $30,000 coming in from the county, And then we also had an associated $30,000 contract for the architects, right? So they're gonna do the cost benefit analysis, gonna give us the cost of the project for the construction. And so we now have 55,000 coming in. I don't see any associated pass-through costs with that. I guess my question is, if we accept this money now and later decide not to move forward with the project, will we have to pay this back?
No, because of the work we've done with the temporary space, that project is good to go because they know very clearly that the architect could do all the scoping they want, but if there isn't funding for a permanent site, then we've made it clear that we're not spending money we have to this project. So if it gets to the point where the health department can't get together a funding source for a permanent building, then we're not going to do it, and we wouldn't have to give anything back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another question, so, and I could have asked this before, but if the cost estimate that the architect gives us for the project exceeds the value of the grants that are lined up, is Mount Baker going to be expected to make up the difference?
No, because I wouldn't ask you guys to approve such a thing.
Okay.
Because I've made it clear that this is not gonna be, something that we're gonna, it is a priority, but it's not a financial priority of ours, I guess is what I would say.
Right. Okay. So I'm inclined to vote yes on this since we have money coming in with no associated expense going out, but I do expect to vote no on the actual project when that comes up for the reasons I've given before. One thing I wanted to ask our board to think about is some type of lease agreement or rental agreement associated with this property. If this does go forward, if I'm understanding how what our state legislature solution is for school funding, it is that they're going to allow school districts to raise property taxes, potentially, is a solution. So I think it would be good for us to think about our school district a little bit more business-like, think about funding. We're going to have to potentially go back to taxpayers and ask for more funding if that's the path that's put in front of us. So from the perspective of creating revenue for a school district, some type of rental or lease agreement would be great. And also just from a visibility perspective of being able to answer the question of what have you done to try and reduce the burden on taxpayers, whether it's decreasing cost or increasing revenue. I think that would help with a lot of people in our district that are going to see this going up and thinking, what are we getting out of this deal? So I think there's some improvements that can be done on negotiation. That's it.
Any other questions or comments?
No.
If not, entertain a motion to approve the interlocal agreement with Whatcom County Health Department.
Motion to approve interlocal agreement with Whatcom County Health Department.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next up is the agreement with the American Forest Resource Council.
Yeah, thanks. So as you've all been aware, Russ and I had a chance to meet with the AFRC a little while ago to talk about the legal action that was taken to pause the sale of the Little Lily. And in board docs, you'll see in the executive content area, you'll see some documents. Those will stay in executive content because of their privileged information between an attorney and us. But the public content is the agreement that we're proposing here tonight. Very simply, AFRC has provided some representation for us because we are considered an injured party in this, that we can be signed on as give an amicus amicus brief about the level of injury that we would receive by this not going through. Does that cover it, Russ?
Yeah, I want to stress that it's at no cost to the district. Both parties are able to withdraw from the agreement with proper notice. We wouldn't, in my mind, we wouldn't intend to withdraw because we definitely want to see this through and get and start having the chance to get revenue from Little Lily, and I don't see American Forest Resource Council withdrawing either, but that's the way, you know, that capability is within the agreement. And our main contribution to the agreement will be some staff time for Nick and Brian to provide some background information on our budget. It's not legally necessary for the court to rule against the appeal, but I think it helps set that scene of showing our need helps kind of brings the importance more to the forefront. So, however, American Forest Resource Council's lawyers see to, you know, put the brief together. I mean, that they're experts at it. They've done some for me, and I just stand back and quite impressed. So
I should also clarify, I did run this agreement by our attorney, and he's in support of it.
So any questions? There are some supporting documents that you can read that kind of explains the case. So if there's no questions, I entertain a motion to approve the agreement with the American Forest Resource Council.
Motion to approve agreement with the American Forest Resource Council.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And I'm very thankful that they're willing to do this. You know, I think
Yes.
you know, it's certainly in their members' interest to see an ongoing and robust program, but at its core, it's money for school districts. So. And then the last on action items is evaluation of interim superintendent. I wanted to thank Brenda for all your work on this, including lots of typing.
Well, yeah, you guys gave me some good stuff to work with, so thank you. That was really good. We were all pretty much on the same page, it seemed like, and so it pretty much wrote itself.
So any questions or comments on the evaluation?
No, I appreciated what your response and the ideas that you have going forward. I think that's definitely a great thing to improve on. So.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So the action we take is approving the evaluation, and then I will sign it on behalf of the board. To approve it. Entertain a motion to approve the evaluation of the interim superintendent.
Motion to approve evaluation of interim superintendent.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So next up is finance report.
Yeah, so as you recall, last month, we were dealing with some issues with the treasurer's office switching software. So we had didn't have accurate data for you yet, so we want to make sure we reported accurate information. So that's why you'll see two reports this month, because this one's last month, then Brian will share again for January, or I'll share it again, yeah. So like I just mentioned, hopefully the reports do improve. Brian's been fantastic in working with the ESD about figuring out where the mistakes are, quite frankly, and he's, you know, he kind of rang the alarm bell for other districts, and they realized, oh yeah, they are wrong. So kudos to him for finding that. Just a note about K3 compliance. That's, you know, where we added some teachers, and we're spot on. Demonstrated class size of 17.56. That's essentially where you want it. You know, because you don't get a bonus for going under 17. And if we put another teacher in, we wouldn't cover the cost of it. So we're feeling good with that, with K3 compliance. So you'll notice that when I share our budgeted FTE, we've been working with that 1448 number. As the year has progressed and as Brian and I have both learned more, the reporting FTE varies in different parts of OSPI, which is annoying to say the least. But what we found is that 1448 was not inclusive of students who are enrolled in our alternative learning programs, which is Mount Baker Academy. So what you'll see us reporting tonight is a higher budgeted FTE, because when we said 1448, that is our students that are not in ALE. So you'll see it a little higher because it's going to be including those students now. And kudos to that program. It's going really well right now. That's that great enrollment in Mount Baker Academy, and Anne's doing great work over there. Couple of things to notice: the loans paid off with the principal coming from the capital projects fund. Sorry, the capital loan, not our, the loan that helped pay for the field house renovations. And big thanks to our voters for passing the levies in last year, because we're gonna start collecting those pretty soon.
In February, I think, but.
Yeah, yep. It was a year ago today, actually.
Mhm.
Because I was talking to some other superintendents who tried to pass some levies recently last night, and some were happy and some were not.
Yes.
I will take a quick moment though to really, I think this fits in with the agenda. I know you're good at agenda watching. I thought there was a typo last night when I saw that Seattle passed a capital levy, which only takes 50% votes. They passed a capital levy of $1.8 billion.
They can build, their
gonna build
school
schools
construction
with
program is capital levy rather than bonds.
Yeah, which again, that speaks to the problem that we're facing with the way this whole system is set up.
Yeah.
That doesn't help a district like us. $1.8 billion. And it only took 50%. It did pass at 77%, but it only needed 50. Anyhow, okay. Thanks for entertaining. Thank you. So those are our balances right now. General fund. Yeah. So that's going to be where you see that. We'd always been talking about budget FTE at 1448, but 1479 is going to be what includes that ALE. That even including that, we're still, our annual average enrollment is above that budget, so we're still doing good.
So with including the ALE, the FTE is adjusted for the difference in apportionment for ALE.
Mhm.
So that number is an adjusted number.
Correct,
for
yeah.
that.
So for each student in the ALE program, we get 90%. So it's not a full FTE. Yep, great question. So you see where, the budgeted was, you see where orange was last year, and blue's where we're at this year. So, I'll be most curious about those, the February, March, April dip that you see last year, to see if we're going to match that this year, if we're going to be able to pass through that.
Yeah, what would have been going on at that time?
I'm not sure. Sometimes, I don't know, it might be, I think about the high school trimester, sometimes there's a change in March. And so you'll see students, as the trimester changes, students might start accessing Running Start at that time, which then hurts our enrollment, our FTE. Revenue tracking. So, as you guys know, the money from apportionment comes in predictable ways, but they're still variable. So see where we are there. And our expenditure tracking is, about 11 million of the 33 we intend to spend this year. Here's the revenue comparison last year to this year. So you can see each month we're making less revenue than we did this time last year. And just that note of the apportionment advance in November of last year, which is why those revenues are pretty high, because then that'll trade off later this year where you see the blue will be much lower because of when we pay back that apportionment. And this is the one where I just, again, this to me, this is the most important graph we have because we all know what inflation is doing to us right now. And the fact that we're able to keep the orange below the blue, even with inflation, I think is a testament to all of the staff's work with, carrying extra loads and also being very mindful about expenditures. So to me, that's an impressive thing, the fact that, we're able to keep that where it is. Revenue to expenditure, as you know, like I said, October and September saw us with a lot of opening year purchase orders to get us through the year. Some of the subscriptions, some of those buying things to get ready to get back to school. So yeah, there's the comparison of revenue to expenditure.
So the down 248,000 below on the bottom part, what number is that comparing to? What's that?
Yeah, that's so that means, so as the year progresses, that we are let me check with Brian on that one. What he means by that one.
I wonder if it's well, wouldn't it have to be cumulative? It wouldn't be
Right.
just assembled. So yeah. So
let me go back to these other ones real quick. I mean, yeah, I'm not sure exactly.
yeah, if you can get Brian
Sure.
to clarify that. You get a chance to ride down to Olympia, you can fill me in on all of this.
Mhm. Yeah. So there's as you know, the revenue that does not come in normally from the state. Our expenditures are pretty typical. So. There's our fund balance tracking for the year. Obviously, we didn't take an apportionment advance, which is why you don't see that big bump in November up there. But we're also not going to see that steep decline, right, that you see from April to June. We won't see that this year because we won't have an apportionment advance to pay back.
Question on that, because we have $2 million in our general fund. How is that fund balance relate to the general fund?
Yeah, because the general fund, the fund balance takes debt into account. So the general fund, we have $2 million in cash in there, but about $1 million of it is from
The loan,
from capital projects.
capital projects loan, but there's still another roughly $500,000, if I'm reading that correctly. That's, I don't know where that is, right? You look at the end of the orange line, the very end of it,
Right here.
it's well below $1 million. And we have 2 million, so even if you take out $1 million out, there's another $1 million, unless, I don't know.
What did we list the fund balance at?
Well, the general fund was listed on I guess the third slide.
Yeah, so
900.
so yeah, looking about 900K difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're right that is looking more closer to a 500.
Right.
Yeah, it's probably 700,000.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure what that.
Another question for Brian.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I know your questions.
Any further questions?
Okay.
It's my only one, and it's a question for Brian if he's at that point is if he has the capability of tracking his ending fund balance prediction, of sort of
Got it.
putting all of these factors, the known factors and the trends that we've had so far
and being able to project those to
As we go, what is August 31st?
as we go, so that we're always sort of saying, okay, these things that have impacted are gonna change that ending fund balance number in this direction.
Yeah.
So that would be something I think would be useful for us to track to the extent that it's at least somewhat valid number.
Yeah, I would be curious to see how the trend in that number, right? We know that August 31st is gonna be, that's when we close the books. So how do the decisions we make now impact what we think that final number is going to be?
Any other questions on the finance part? If not, next is superintendent's report.
Yeah, so my superintendent report is gonna be a pretty straightforward one. And it's in the public section of the board docs for tonight. I know I've been communicating with the five of you pretty clearly about the role that the changes at the federal level have been impacting or playing here in Washington and Mount Baker. But I also thought it was important to share that with the public as well. So I created this document for folks to read. You know, and it's to answer some questions I've had, but also to keep people informed. So I'll just kind of go topic by topic. And if I forgot a topic that you were interested in, just let me know and I'm more than happy to add to this. So, you know, one of the first things was a memo from the OMB about pausing of agency grants, loans, and other financial assistance programs. That was the White House rescinded that memo, but then said the memo was still in effect, even though the memo itself had been rescinded. And there was litigation filed instantly. And so pending that litigation, there's no financial impacts to us, which is one of the questions I heard right away. So we have not been impacted by it, but I've linked in Superintendent Reichdahl's release about that memo for further reading. And just know that when I label the executive orders, those are that's the label that the White House has given them as the executive orders go. So there's an executive order titled "Securing Our Borders" that was signed, as well as some changes in policy with immigration customs enforcement that caused some questions in our community. So as you guys know, court ruling of Plyler versus Doe is, you know, that's the precedent that's been set. And so that requires public school districts to provide education opportunities to all students regardless of status. And you guys have seen the messages I've shared messages with the community, as well as messages with the staff. The feedback I've got from the staff is they feel like they know what to do should something arise that they're feeling uncomfortable with. Again, Superintendent Reichdahl released some information on that, which is linked here. The Department of Ed has released what's called a Dear Colleague letter, which is anytime there's updates to Title IX, their guidance comes in the form of what's called a Dear Colleague letter. And so the most recent colleague letter is attached there. And as you guys know, it reverts Title IX back to the 2020 regs, which our policies and procedures are in compliance with. So we're good to go with that. But I just wanted to make it clear that there's still pretty strong Washington state law around anti-discrimination. So we take Title IX violations seriously, but we also will continue to uphold state law around anti-discrimination.
So there's no other kind of conflicts there? Because I thought we had continued to update policies.
We thought about it, but we didn't actually do it. So we kind of paused it, and by accidentally pausing it, we are back now in compliance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've written, I think, 4 letters to WASDA's attorney on this issue to try to get a clear policy statement or updated policy out of WASDA, and so far she's telling me she's still working. I think the landscape is changing rapidly enough that it's hard to put a pin in a particular. So, but I expect that to be coming. Tammy is our gatekeeper on WASDA policy changes. So you'll be able to keep an eye out for that and I can see why they're letting a little bit of the dust settle before they finish writing it, because between federal, state, and the courts,
it's a little bit up in the air.
The biggest, the clearest difference I can draw from 2020 and 2024 is 2024 expanded protections for people who are pregnant under Title IX. So that is no longer, again, those protections no longer fall under Title IX, but in our state, it's such that those protections will still exist in other state law. Another example would be with those changes of 2024, if a student was bullying another student based on their gender identity or gender expression, Title IX in 2024 compelled us to investigate that as Title IX. However, going back to 2020 now, that's no longer a Title IX violation. However, it would still potentially be a violation of the anti-discrimination law in our state. So we'd use harassment, intimidation, bullying to investigate it. It just changes the tool that we use to investigate it. There's an executive order expanding educational freedom and opportunity for families, and that is scheduled to take effect May 1st. I'm not aware of any pending litigation with that one yet, but that's all around school choice. Again, we don't have control at the district level, but the state could potentially change laws to meet that executive order, which undoubtedly would impact school funding. That's just based off of what you're seeing in Arizona, where school choice is in place there, and it again it just changes the way school funding models work. Executive order ending radical indoctrination of K-12 schooling, again scheduled to take effect May 1st. That pertains to topics including diversity, equity, and inclusion. Also calls for expanded patriotic education in schools. And again, still some time on that one. Not sure what the implementation of that one looks like yet. Executive order keeping men out of women's sports pertains to participation of trans female athletes in athletic events. Again, it's unclear what power this has at this point because Washington State, again, because of the state we live in with the strong anti-discrimination laws, and as well as our local policy and procedure that support trans female athlete participation, then we're just not sure how those things all work together. And Superintendent Reichdahl has communicated his thoughts about it, which can also be found there. And the last piece is, I also did see that there is some litigation that just came about the other day about this executive order as well. But I'm not too familiar with it, so I don't want to comment on it. Then, as you know, the current administration has talked a lot about closing the Department of Education. That does take an act of Congress to close a department like that. So that timeline is unknown. I did have a webinar with the state superintendent this week, and he didn't seem as, obviously closing Department of Ed would be a big deal, but he's not sure of the implications yet. And he also said that what could potentially happen is that some of those responsibilities within the Department of Ed would just go to other departments. So the examples he used was the Office of Civil Rights would fall under the jurisdiction of the Department of Justice. So we wouldn't be throwing civil rights away. It would just be, we'd report to a different department as opposed to the Department of Ed.
Civil rights is in the Department of Education.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
When Congress has been requested to close it before, and bipartisan support, and so I'll believe it when I see it. I don't expect it because you're not going to get past the Senate filibuster.
How much of our funding comes federal?
It's a good question, and I was hoping to nail that one down. It's in Washington State, it's not as significant as it is in other states. We're traditionally in Washington, we are on the worst end of federal funding as far as we give more than we get for federal stuff. So
I used to consider kind of a ballpark figure of 10% for our budget, but it may be lower with having increased the state funding at a rate faster than the federal funding. So
yeah,
that's another good question for Brian to pull that out. But it's definitely not insignificant because all your title positions are funded by this.
Yeah.
And so I'm not gonna. My mother-in-law always used to say, "Don't borrow trouble." So I'm not gonna, but it definitely be a concern because you got your contract, your employment contracts year to year. If funding gets yanked out mid-year, you still have to pay the employment contracts. And we'd be up a creek.
And that's one of the things that, when I spoke to the AASA representative, who's the national advocate for superintendents, when we talked about the Department of Ed piece, and specifically title piece, there is the concept of educational freedom, but then also the impacts on local economies. Should something like that occur, you look at where a lot of our Title I dollars go in this district, they pay a lot of paraeducators. And almost all of our paraeducators live here in Mount Baker. So not only would those students be losing services, we'd be impacting our economy as well.
And here again, getting it through Congress, a lot of the so-called red states are getting more funding through this than they pay in income tax. So
yeah,
it cut off your nose to spite your face.
Besides the money we get, what other interaction is there between the federal Department of Education and our state?
Yeah, it's as far as the Department of Ed and our state, I'm not sure. I think you look at the Department of Ed for, being post-secondary as well, right? They do stuff with FAFSA and support our students with getting into college. We don't necessarily, we work with Department on some federal stuff, but so much that comes through the state that we rarely work with them directly.
We do some of the grants we have to.
Yep. Yeah. So a lot of
certify.
Any of our Indian Ed grants are going to be straight through the federal government.
Yeah. And then you notice as we go through policies, all of our policies have to reflect federal requirements. So like the on contracting and various other policies that have federal funding that might be attached to them. Those are, but those are usually our compliance is usually monitored by the state auditor.
Yeah,
for federal compliance.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They'll know federal law and they'll know if we're not within it. So that's what I have for the superintendent report tonight. Sorry, something the most engaging. I just wanted to share important information, I thought.
Any other questions on the superintendent's report? Well, thank you. It's changing landscape.
Boy, it's hard to keep up sometimes. And that's why I wanted to kind of centralize the information, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that.
And that's on the website or you can?
That's in board docs. So
Okay.
it's in the public part of board docs. I don't know how much of our community accesses board docs, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That many.
And I was going to shout to the person online, but there's no one there.
Maybe later.
Yeah, if you watch later, I use board docs, which is actually where you find
Maybe
the
we
video.
could put that on the website, like, I don't know, is that on there, like part of is it like on the school board section, like a link to board docs?
Yeah,
So, okay.
Yep.
Good.
I also realize the link to this video lives in there too. So you have to know where board docs is to find the video.
Boom, there you go.
Yep.
So next up is meeting schedule. And I think there were, Todd Rutmeyer wanted to have some students here.
Yeah, because I believe it's next week is National FFA Week.
Okay.
And so traditionally we hear from some FFA students. So, the 27th, we have a study session. So we'll hear from Bridget and a guest speaker from the ESD about teaching and learning as a focus for that study session. So that'll be the study session part, but also having Todd and some students come speak about FFA. And in addition to that, he also wanted to do a school board visit to talk with him about CTE in general.
So for the visit, to do this on a practical basis, we could get some dates.
Sure.
And then send those out, and then let's figure out when we want to do that over email, so we can schedule
So I'll work
that.
with you guys via email about scheduling that.
So that would be a high school visit just for
CTE department only. Yeah, we kind of view it at that point as a different entity because he is the director of that, which is a quasi-administrative role.
And then the other thing to be on the lookout for, and I didn't check to see when the date might when this might start, but that Mark Van with Northwest Leadership, we're going to get applications for us to review here on site. And I think you've been working with Tammy how to handle that, so. And then the 27th, you've also figured out how to do Zoom for the 27th.
Yeah, so.
So that would be good. Yeah. So that'd be excellent, and we can talk about backups if for some reason the technology fails.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, well, yeah,
FaceTime or something,
sure.
but I'm glad that you're be able to participate then.
And then I shared a link with Mark, and I'll share it with the rest of the board. Once he starts getting the applications finalized, he'll put it in a secure, the Google form. He'll drop those in there and then I can share it with all of you
Okay,
so that you can have access to all of the.
and we'll get an email out when that's
Yeah.
ready with the instructions. Thank you. That's all I had on meeting schedules. And we do not have any executive session, so adjourn. Thank you. Just sign documents.
Everybody.
Also, if anybody wants to see artificial intelligence in action.